Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are with Jean Eng and the Arcturian healing method, presence healing, as we're talking about an introduction to our next Mastery Empowerment course series. This is the Arcturian Sacred Relationships Transmissions. Hi, Jean. Welcome. It's so good to see you again.
Hi, Lauren. Great to be here. Great seeing you and great seeing everyone here.
So I do have to say that the topic is very timely for this year. We have been learning recently that the relationships, sacred sexuality, and even the blending and the merging of the divine feminine and the divine masculine within us is something that is on course this year for a great acceleration, if you will. Even the Gene Keys says that this year is a powerful time for that, as we are fully anchored into our Aquarian age as well. So, Jean, you're always inspired by the Arcturians on these transmissions. Can you share with us why this is the topic of the hour?
Mhm. Yeah, I think you're so spot on in terms of the year and things coming to a fore with our relationships, and of course, it's I think a timely or age old or age um, process that everyone has been working on, in every evolution, every incarnation. But there's a couple of factors. One, actually, a number of clients, requested this. So it's actually, yeah, coming to the fore for a lot of people, and I think that's a reflection of what's happening in our accelerated times. And then the exact transmission topics, were sort of my perception of what the Arcturians or kind of the higher beings could work with, and some of my own personal knowledge or experience with this topic sort of blended. So maybe those three factors kind of brought together this particular topic.
Well, I love it. And so it's really fascinating because so you mentioned that a couple of your clients requested this. And what we've seen, particularly since I would say 2022, there has been such a shifting underway. So this is really honoring new levels of relationships. And we've even heard from Archangel Metatron that this is a year to relate. And how do we show up and relate? And so that we could say this for romantic partners or soul mates, this sort of thing. That's what we're talking about here. But on that larger scale, in every way that we show up in love, it is important. And so in 2022, we saw a lot of shifting. Do you think that this is because of the rise in the divine feminine, or what aspects? There's a shifting on all levels going on, but have you been able to identify maybe the divine feminine and that needs to balance out a little bit, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the rise of the divine feminine, like in all people, and however we incarnated biologically, and also our orientation, whether we're sort of in a male suit or a female suit, we all have the divine feminine energies, and also as well as the divine masculine energies. And we, switch off probably if people believe in, past lives or incarnations, continuous incarnations into different biological forms of that reflection of the male and female. But I think, yes, with that, relationships are kind of on a new level, a new interaction. And I was just thinking that, again, seeing ourselves beyond just this incarnation, a lot of people who are drawn to the spiritual path in this life probably had a number of monastic lives or lives where they may have, or kind of secluded lives where they may have been meditating or contemplating in a very intense way, but maybe not with the type of freedom of the romantic relationships or sort of intimate relationships we have now. Uh, Even if it was a type of relationship, it might not have been even, like you said, based on love. It might have been based on sort of arrangement or something of this nature. So even the idea of kind of a free choice in one's partner may be also a new aspect. So speaking to the monastic piece, maybe now in this time, the goal isn't to kind of repeat that completely because maybe those lessons were learned. And now the new avenue is actually to relate, like you said, to another person, maybe very intensely. Maybe it's a long time or a short time. And those are really the spiritual lessons and interactions and even the spiritual path for many people.
Yes, it's very interesting and exciting. And there's a sovereignty here. So before we go into the three transmissions, which in itself, it's really fascinating. We're going to discuss that. Can you share on twin flames and your understanding? Because there is while we're talking about sacred relationships, this is not taking our sovereignty away, or it's not making us reliant on another. And maybe that's a whole new upgrade as we become aware of that attitude or that alignment when we approach relationships, because some would say, oh, I'm looking for my twin flame. But what is your take on that? Because that could be good or not so good, and maybe not even necessary. So when we're talking about relationships, it really is how we show up. And as we're going to talk, it's the seven planes of nature, those seven subtle bodies, which I find really interesting. But first, what is your take on the twin flame and maybe a desire to have that? Is that important, or what should our approach be?
Yeah, I think that is an important aspect, and maybe that's a framework to understand sort of that magnetism, that attraction to certain people, and sort of this inner knowing that there is souls that we have a very strong connection to, and maybe they're present in our life, or maybe we know they're somewhere, and we're kind of putting that beacon out to find them. However, the framework might be in terms of that term, twin flames, and I think the special offer or special gift of a previous mastery empowerment class, we kind of go over some of the details of that. That may not be per se the main focus for this upcoming one, but definitely is directly related, like based on your question. And one of the practices, just to make it sort of something that people could do, is if you have someone, or maybe you don't really need to announce that you're kind of looking for a twin flame. But if you do, like, you stare in each other's eyes, maybe some people have done this in a workshop, and maybe the first 3 minutes, you're kind of giggling and getting over this kind of, we don't usually stare at someone's eyes for very long. But after a while, you may start to see their face change, or you get inner visions about them. And really, what's happening for people who are interested in, maybe tuning in clairvoyantly to see if someone, really has this kind of bond, maybe we'll just call it the twin flame, is through the eyes, you're connecting to their pineal gland. If you didn't even explain that, you would get the energy. And then you start to actually see how you're interconnected karmically. Like you may see past lives of them, that's these face changes and insights. And usually in the practice, the instructor or facilitator won't explain all that I'm explaining so that, people don't overlay something on top of that. And you have the pure experience. But really, it's actually a lot of the information is in the pineal gland energetically for how you might be related to someone. It could be a twin flame. It could just be someone you have a karmic relationship to.
And it's very interesting, the past lives and all of that. And I know that we're going to probably feel into that in these transmissions. And the important thing that I want to suggest is that regardless of that past life, what are we going to do about it in this life? And
Mhm.
so again, it brings us back to that full circle. How do we show up in these relationships? So let's talk about the three transmissions, because here we go. The first one is the sacred relationship as connections to the other through the seven planes of nature. And this is fascinating because I never really I never really applied it that way. But yet, when I stop to pause and think about it, it's really potent and powerful. So, share with us what this is because it's the seven subtle bodies that we're relating to the other in. Fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. The place that I sort of saw this framework kind of in an esoteric way was actually people might know the writer Dion Fortune, who was writing in the 20s, the 40s. She kind of started her own esoteric school in England, and a very high level clairvoyant and channeler and medium. I'll just kind of mention the book here in case people are interested. It's called The Esoteric Philosophy of Love and Marriage by Dion Fortune. But she really talks about, how, intimate relationships are actually can be seen esoterically through the different dimensions of yourself, whichever one you might be using. But the one, of course, that goes beyond just the physical. So, like the one that I mentioned here, the seven planes is physical, etheric, emotional, mental, causal, spiritual, and divine. And if you see like that we're kind of coupling at all seven dimensions, it can help, particularly before, during, and after, meeting someone who you feel you're, being called to have that kind of intimate connection. That can be very helpful. I'll just give one example, and then we can kind of expand it. But I think usually a lot of times a romantic relationship is drawn together definitely because of a physical, perhaps etheric connection. And, in our kind of everyday world, maybe which doesn't use seven dimensions, just maybe more the physical dimension, and maybe we refer to these other dimensions through indirect ways, like we say we have chemistry. This might actually be a reference more to the etheric level, this etheric attraction. And the key that Dion Fortune was pointing out, and I think we're trying to do here in the transmissions, is maybe we call it the honeymoon period or that intense period where you're very attracted. It could be just the physical, etheric, almost like batteries. You're very much drawn together, and you're not thinking about the ones that we probably aren't consciously maybe right away thinking about is the causal, spiritual, and divine. Like how do we work spiritually? Now, maybe with the group we're talking with, that would be a consideration consciously. But let's say someone very young, maybe they're teenagers, early 20s, maybe they haven't thought about these dimensions. It's like physical attraction, etheric attraction. But let's say at the spiritual level, they really haven't thought about it. Actually, they don't connect, at that level. And so 10, 20 years down, though, if they got married or they stayed together, that might be very important as those unfold for the person. Like someone gets onto a very active spiritual path, and the other partner didn't have that in their coding. They were still maybe very focused on the lessons in the physical, etheric world. And then when the other partner starts to, kind of blossom or open up their codes at their spiritual level, they really get onto a spiritual path, then you can see there's not maybe that communication anymore. So it could help, maybe we're talking about before a kind of romantic relationship starts, to see if you are actually compatible or actually exchanging energy and information fully, or at least in the future, at all seven levels. And we'll kind of unpack that more probably in the class.
Very good. Thank you. I mean, it really sounds fascinating. And again, when we think about that, it explains the multidimensionality of even our relationships, and that's profound. So we're looking forward to the support from the Arcturian transmissions on these aspects. And so I love the next one as well, because this is cool, the sacred geometry of divine relationships. And this is really, again, I'm reminding of the yin and the yang within us, but yet that extends to our relationships. And here we talk about the Vesica piscis. So share with us what's this transmission is on day 2.
Yeah, like when you use sacred geometry, which is sort of the direct communication, their divine packed thought forms. So when people might have already, had their own in-depth study of this topic, but kind of working with the knowledge, like you said, the yin yang symbol might be another version of that. This is, I'll just put on my background for people where that, just to kind of, this is the Vesica Piscis, a form of it in a diagrammatic form. So the circle is sort of like the divine, the wholeness, the non-dual state. There's no polarity yet. There's no masculine, feminine, or negative or positive poles, say to the battery or energy. But then the next sort of geometrical shape, when you enter polarity, which is kind of what we're talking about here, how do we balance the polarities or this dynamic balance? Then the Vesica is actually Pisces is the sacred geometrical form for that. And basically, you can see one circle's circumference runs right into the center of the other circle and vice versa. And so you get this overlap sort of where my head is. And that's actually the vesica, if you just call it that kind of almond shape. And that's actually the balance point. So really what we're trying to find, and I learned some of these concepts or a lot of them from Robert Gilbert and Dr. Ibrahim Karim, who started biogeometry. And Dr. Karim, who founded biogeometry, they're always, the principle is trying to find the center, let's say in a room, balancing the center of a space, balancing the center of a chakra or a person's energy field. And so it's the same when two energy fields come together, which again is represented by the Vesica Pisces kind of diagrammatically or geometrically. You're trying to find the balance, in a relationship, whether it's a romantic or intimate relationship, which is kind of the focus here, or any relationship. So just as an example that people can, just really identify right away with, in any relationship, but let's say in a romantic relationship, you're trying to find the balance between merging in whatever way that might be, seven planes of nature, but also being independent, like you're your own, like you say, sovereign self. And you find those issues, come to the fore at some point as a way to learn how to find the Vesica Pisces, like that you're not engulfed in only what your partner wants or in what the relationship wants, but yet you're not so far apart that you're not in relationship anymore. So we're always trying to find, and it's a dynamic balance. There's no, you couldn't really write it down as, do this. Is something that has to be intuited at the moment, like you said, in the present.
Yes, and so I love how your head is perfectly in the
Yeah, exactly.
Pisces. That itself is an interesting activation, and it is really wonderful how we show up then. So this can help people bring balance into their relationship. So when we're working and visualizing the Vesica Pisces and the Arcturian transmissions that we're going to receive is very interesting in helping us do that. But do we just, like, if we're working with a relationship, would we just visualize this Vesica Pisces and notice what we notice? Because it seems like there has to be some surrender of the mind,
Hmm.
and surrender of control, right? And doing it our way. And we're really, if we're really going to blend in that way, then a little bit of surrender and a little bit of not being too surrendering or a doormat, so to speak, but to be equally on both, for each person to be equally standing on 2 feet, coming together as equals. What are your thoughts on how we work with the Vesica Pisces to bring that balance?
Yeah, I think it's on a lot of levels. Again, even using the seven planes of nature idea, like intellectually, or even when people see the diagram and think, oh, I could, you can apply this to your relationship. So you start to think about it mentally, but then you get into an embodied form. So even people who do like gymnastics or a ballet or any kind of physical form where balance is important, intuitively they start to understand because they've learned a lot from working with their body, how that would translate into a relationship. So just having this pattern applied to relationships could already trigger a lot of inner wisdom about how to work with, let's say, a person's now in a partnership or was in a one where they could reflect on, oh yeah, I see how I was very clingy, and I didn't couldn't see it at the time, but that probably led to my partner kind of trying to run away or move away. But I think it's a lot like surfing or any activity. You can describe it as much as you want, but you just have to jump into the water and kind of swim for a long time, just having a lot of experience. And either you could look at your own self in terms of a long-term relationship, maybe one that's gone a couple years or even decades, or you could imagine someone who's very artful in this balanced way. You could imagine it's a very intuitive, knowing, like someone like a master chef is no longer like reading the ingredients. They kind of can taste what's going on and put in the right ingredients, and they may not even use measuring cups or measuring spoons at that point. So just like that, they've accumulated a lot of experiences and kind of know when your partner is this way, exactly what is the balance point for that. There's nothing you can actually read to actually get that information. You can get pointed that way, but then it's because you've been with that person thousands of times and you see, what that means, what the distance is for the balance. So I think so it's a combination of things, but in the end, it's sort of like you just have to get in the water and swim for a while, like in surfing, and just be on the board and fall off the board to kind of find that balance that's dynamic in every moment.
Yes, and you're correct that just the visualization and this understanding of the Vesica Piscis is really helpful in this moment. And so thank you for that, because as we move through our relationships, when we remember that Vesica Piscis, it really, I mean, I think no further explanation is needed. We can really be that balance. So that's a beautiful image and sacred geometry tool to use for that. And so the third transmission is very interesting as well. It's the energy exchange of chakras, channels, and divine energies. And that's fascinating because as we're understanding chords that we create with people, we can help change or shift these chords and make those chords more balanced, not just cut them if we need to cut chords. Could you explain more on chords and this energy exchange as you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of the audience here, of course, probably have been working with chakras, or that's not a new concept, kind of a probably a well used, and they're very embodied with the idea of chakras, or maybe it's a new one, but this idea of the energy centers, and we usually think of it, within one person, but now we're kind of interacting here with, how do you relate energetically with someone, and these are exchanges of the chakras, thinking them as like kind of energetic exchanges or funnels of energy and information. And now it's like working chakra to chakra, and you do this all the time with people. Of course, when the longer you spend time with a person, which is kind of maybe a romantic or intimate relationship, the more exchange is occurring. So, for example, someone who's very clairvoyant, or even if people here are sensitive, now that you have this idea of chakras being part of a relationship, if you haven't done this already, like if you wanted to know if, how much loving kindness is between a partner, you can actually scan for that. You are not scanning just for one person's heart chakra. Let's say you scan, like meaning you use your hands as sensitivity, or you could use your third eye, or you could just ask, like how big is the two heart chakras when they're together? Let's say Mary and Bob. And if it's very like, oh wow, there's a lot of energy there, you're not just scanning one heart chakra again. You're like, oh, even before, let's say you're their energetic psychotherapist, if that was a new client and you just kind of tuned in before you saw them, you'd probably say, okay, at least there's a lot of love here. Now there may be some issues, or they wouldn't be coming to you with the other chakras or even that one, but at least you could get a sense. Oh yeah, I feel a lot of energy in between their heart chakras. That means there's probably a lot of loving kindness But if you scan and they're like, whoa, this is kind of a little bit smaller than maybe it's like their head chakras, let's say from ajna to ajna, is very strong, then maybe it's more like a mental relationship. Like they really find each other challenging or complementary. Like if you find someone who you can't talk to about what your day-to-day thinking is about, a lot of times that relationship's not going to last for a long term because it's hard to discuss similar things. But maybe the relationship, if that's really strong, but the heart chakra connection is kind of let's say half the size, then you're like, oh, maybe this is the reason there's some issues, because yes, they can see eye to eye, they can talk a lot about maybe intellectual ideas at the same level, but to kind of grease the wheels when things don't kind of work out, you need that loving kindness to kind of say, oh, it's okay. Oh, okay, this is like half the energy of the ajna. So you can use this framework to really help your own relationship, and as well as help others.
Yes, okay. I know we're going to do a short mini transmission to experience these frequencies, but it's really fascinating that we can scan someone's chakras. Can you take a moment and share with us how we would do that? You did mention the hands. And so would you put that person in front of you and scan the chakras, or how would we do that?
Yeah. A lot of it's an intention, and like your chakra is just to say, your hand is like you're using your hands as kind of energy sensing devices. And you have two chakras, one in the center of each palm. It's called a mini chakra, and then you have really small chakras here at your fingers. And so it can, your energy centers can sense other energy centers, almost like eyes in your hands. And you might see some tankas with beings who have like eyes in their hands, like White Tara. She actually has eyes in her hands and her feet, which are pointing to these mini chakras. Um, Anyways, the idea is like you ask first what you're scanning for. So let's say you had a partner, and you could imagine them in front of you, and you're kind of scanning the energy between you and your partner. And then you just scan like whatever particular chakra connection. So let's say it's the heart chakra. So you just ask for the energy or intensity of the two heart chakras together, like you and your partner. And then you start a little bit farther away, and then just begin moving your hands in, and maybe you start to feel tingling or pressure. Each person has a different way of sensing energy, but usually it's on some kind of vibrational level, tingling, pressure, like ants moving around your hands, this kind of thing, change in temperature. And then, you'll kind of come to a point where it gets really dense. And so then you're really feeling the energy. So it's a relative scale, like you don't have to, like, there's nothing absolute about 2 feet or 3 feet, but what you're usually doing is comparing it to some other chakra or chakra connection. And what you want to, and it gives you some idea of the amount, the intensity gives you some idea of the connection. A further step would be the quality. So it could be really strong, and then like, then if I asked you, okay, what does it kind of taste like or smell like, or the kind of smell out of your hands, or what does it feel like? Like, does it, when you pick up something, is it like kind of painful, or is it really like, oh, soft and gentle, like a baby skin? So then you could even go one step further as you develop this, like, what is the energy quality that I'm feeling here? Yeah, so that maybe, I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, yes, very cool. All right, thank you. I know many watching and listening are practicing that and putting it into play right now. And we'll do more of this in the transmission. Do you want to add anything about this series before we move into a little sample of a transmission?
Yeah, just as another example, I know like someone had, speaking of just people, participants, clients, where this is important, she's a practitioner. I remember she was sharing, and maybe it was in our mastery empowerment class, she was working with a couple. And I think I forgot the exact question, but basically I said, based on this, on what she was saying, I kind of used the same model. And I said, you scan the lower chakras too, because sometimes the fire goes out, so to speak, if there's not that lower chakra connection, basic chakra, sex chakra, navel chakra. It could be like the relationship's there, maybe it's kind of signed in paper, but you're kind of losing some of the fire of that kind of maybe brought someone together, like I was talking about the physical etheric. So the lower chakras, just to kind of finish this out, since I talked about the head and the heart, that belly region also needs to be there. So you kind of need, if it's kind of a very intimate main partner, however that might be, whatever sex it might be biologically, it's still the energy field. You sort of want a balance of the upper chakras, the middle chakras, and the lower chakras. And maybe perhaps a little bit bigger on the top, so that it's kind of a soul directed a relationship. That's kind of how the chakra field of a balanced romantic relationship probably looks like.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that work. And we are excited for these transmissions. As we know, they allow us to receive energies and downloads, energetic downloads that then continue to open up and work for us before we even get there. Like as people watch this video as the introduction, their dream space may reflect certain awarenesses that come up. And then even in the time that we're together in the 3 days, dream space is very good. It's a very sacred container that we open. And even afterwards, I've often thought, wow, it'd be so great to connect again with people after, to see how they're integrating. So this is a beautiful time to integrate the last mastery empowerment class as well when we gather with everyone. But this is just a special place. And so the change, the vibrational shifts that people make in these 3 days together is palpable and extraordinary. And again, I just have to thank you for that work and thank the Arcturians for the transmissions. They really are quite beautiful, and we get more adept at feeling them within ourselves and then now seeing them in our relationships. It's really beautiful. So thank you. All right. So how about a little mini transmission as a sample?
But yeah, I was thinking, since we have the Vesica Pisces behind there, and just round out that question you'd asked, yeah, the transmissions will imprint, for example, the second one, this sort of codes that are, working at a deeper level, not just a intellectual level, although that's very helpful. The mental level could already start to shift one's relationship if one was sort of working on some issues, just this idea of finding the balance point. But now we'll kind of embody those codes here. So we're going to do a Vesica Pisces relationship transmission. And people can just be open. If you have a working relationship or a relationship you wanted to work on, you can state that that's coming through for that relationship to bring balance and harmony. Also, there's particular angelic beings who actually are um, focused on harmony and balance, and those are the cherubim. So we'll call in the cherubim too, just because this is their sort of mastery. We're starting the Vesica Pisces relationship transmission with the assistance or guidance of the cherubim, the angelic hierarchy, who are known as the spirits of balance and harmony. If you had a specific relationship, it could be a romantic or intimate relationship, could be any type of relationship which you wanted to bring that balance, that Vesica pattern into all the 7 dimensions of that relationship, you can request that. Or it can simply be to upgrade your system so you understand how to use that at all 7 dimensions in all your relationships. Now we're deepening this download, going through another deepening cycle. Can also connect to your what's called the holy guardian angel, who's your main guide on the angelic realm for their assistance and bringing through this pattern, manifesting this pattern in your life for relationships. Finally, in this third deepening cycle, we'll sort of be downloading this for the collective. Of course, we're part of that, so it's still intimately connecting to us, but we're also interconnected to all beings, starting with humanity, including plants, animals, angelic beings. We're sort of downloading the pattern for the collective also, particularly in this accelerated time, as Lauren was mentioning, the stabilization of the age of Aquarius and the rise of the divine feminine interacting in a balanced way with the divine masculine. And that ends the overall transmission. We thank the cherubim and our holy guardian angel and other guides who are there to assist us, the Arcturians, your higher self, your partner's higher self. When you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes and snap your fingers.
That was so helpful and beneficial, and I loved it. And surprisingly for me, I with the cherubim came in so cute. They're the little cupids too. I saw the little cupid, and then it expanded to all my relationships. And then when you mentioned the collective, wow, I felt the energy of how we show up as humans, how we move and navigate as humans, interacting and flowing in all relationships, like you said, with the plants, with the animals. And that was really powerful. So thank you for that, Jean. And I hope that everyone is feeling the incredible balance and harmony. And we hope that you join us because, wow, in just those few minutes, what we felt was really beautiful. Can you imagine what happens when we have 3 days, 6 hours together? That's the real magic. Jean, thank you for this transmission today. Thank you for bringing it forward. We always like to offer a bonus course that we've done earlier to actually support this work. And what is that you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I was referring to it in earlier in the talk, the Arcturian monad activations.
Yeah.
And we do talk about frameworks for understanding twin flames and so forth that are coming all the way from the monad is really our first kind of separation from the divine, considered like the divine spark. And then our souls or our higher souls kind of emanate from that divine spark. So it's a framework also that would work very well here in understanding relationships at the soul level.
So wonderful, beautiful. Well, that is a beautiful course that you can download right upon registering for this course and join us. Again, if you can't join us live, you can listen to the replays and you can join us no matter where you start. If you start at the end, in the middle, or the beginning, it doesn't matter because these are each independent. And it's beautiful, supportive space, and we're really looking forward for everyone to join us. Jean, thank you so much for this beautiful transmission, the mini transmission, and we're excited to see you very soon. Is there anything else you'd like to share as we say goodbye?
Yeah, just to mention, we didn't mention this aspect. You mentioned Cupid. So there are a lot of spiritual beings who, the term is maybe called magnetizing, like in the Tibetan tradition. Her name is Kurakule. She is a little bit like a Cupid figure, shoots the heart, makes people, activated romantically. So, that's a big part of our life. And so maybe some people are also looking, to find that partner, to kind of engage that magnetism. So we'll also be working with those energies and forces and codes.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much. This is where it gets exciting as we steer our consciousness in love. Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Arcturians. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Namaste.
Okay.
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.